Good morning, Warriors. Welcome to Morning Adrenaline. Today is Monday, June 6th, 2026, and it is time to wake up the warrior. Hey, let me start today with a question. What is addiction? See, you probably already have an answer in your mind and you didn't even stop to think about it. You immediately picture drugs or alcohol, nicotine or gambling, or maybe even pornography. See, that's what you've been taught addiction looks like. Those are the addictions you've been warned about, the ones that make headlines, the ones that destroy lives in obvious ways. But what if your understanding of addiction is incomplete? What if you spent your entire life looking in one direction while something just as destructive has been quietly growing in another? And what if the addiction having the greatest influence on your life is the one you've never actually recognized? Because here's what you may have never considered. Not every addiction announces itself. Some introduce themselves as comfort. Some arrive disguised as entertainment. Some call themselves taking a break. Others hide behind relationships or approval or busyness or endless distractions. See, the addiction that's having the greatest impact on your life probably didn't introduce itself as an addiction at all. It introduced itself as something harmless. You probably thought of it as something that you deserved or something you told yourself you'd only do for a little while. Then it asked for a little more of your attention today and a little more tomorrow until one day it quietly became the architect of your life. Now, imagine waking up 10 years from now. You haven't ruined your life. You haven't lost everything. From the outside, everything looks just fine. You have a job, a home, friends, probably even a family. But deep inside, you know something's missing. You know there was a stronger version of yourself that never fully emerged. And it wasn't because you lacked talent, and it's not because opportunity never came knocking, but because little by little, day after day, you retraded your future for whatever felt good in the moment. Not through one catastrophic decision, understand, but through thousands of comfortable ones. So maybe it was something like endless entertainment. Maybe it was constantly distracting yourself. Maybe it was staying mentally unstimulated because thinking deeply required way too much effort. Maybe it was a relationship that slowly became more important than your purpose. Maybe it was always choosing comfort over growth. Maybe it was endlessly consuming instead of intentionally creating. Now, before we go any further, let me be really clear on something. There's nothing wrong with pleasure or comfort or relationships or entertainment. These things are all part of a healthy lifestyle. The problem, guys, isn't enjoying them. The problem is allowing them to quietly become more important than the life you were created to build. Because the moment something begins directing your future instead of serving your future, that's when everything changes. So listen, hear me clearly. Anything is healthy when it's your servant, but most things become destructive when they become your master. And that's the distinction, because every addiction asks you the same question. Will you trade who you could become for how you feel right now? So today's episode, I'm calling The Addictions Nobody Warned You About. Because addiction is far bigger than you've probably been led to believe. It isn't defined only by substances. It's defined by authority. See, everyone has addictions. The question isn't whether you're addicted. The question is what has authority over your decisions. Think about that. Every single day, something is influencing your choices. Something determines whether you stay disciplined or become distracted, whether you pursue your purpose or settle for comfort, whether you continue becoming the person you know you're capable of becoming or quietly negotiate with being average. See, every addiction makes the same promise. I'll make you feel better today if you'll let me borrow your future. Sounds like a good deal until you realize the interest you're paying is your potential. See, it doesn't steal your life all at once. It borrows an evening, a weekend, a season, and all of a sudden, all of that piles up to a year. until one day you wake up wondering where your potential went. See, it didn't disappear. You just simply negotiated it away, one comfortable decision at a time. So listen, today isn't about making you feel judged. It isn't about shame, but it is about awareness, because you can't reclaim authority over something you refuse to recognize. So today I'm going to expose the addictions nobody warned you about. But before we do that, let me ask you the question of the day that I want you to carry with you throughout this entire episode. What has more authority over your daily decisions than your purpose? So listen, don't answer that with your intentions. They don't matter. Answer with your habits. See, your calendar tells the truth. Your screen time tells the truth. Your spending tells the truth. You want to know what controls you? Take a look at your checking account and your credit card statements. Your conversations tell the truth. Your discipline tells the truth. What your mind is constantly using to distract you tells the truth. Because whatever consistently receives your attention eventually receives your life. And whatever consistently receives your life shapes the person that you are becoming. So if you're going to reclaim your authority, if you're going to stop allowing silent addictions to quietly steal your future, there are 4 principles you need to understand. Now listen, these aren't my opinions. They're not theories. They're principles. Because principles remain true whether you acknowledge them or not. So let's begin with the first principle of reclaiming your authority over addiction. Addiction is about authority, not activity. So you probably spent most of your life asking the wrong question. Is this wrong? Should I stop doing this? Is this an addiction? They're not bad questions. They're just incomplete. A better question is, who is making your decisions? Because every decision you make is giving authority to something. Your purpose or your comfort, your calling or your cravings, your future or whatever feels good today. That's the battle. Not the activity, the authority. See, you don't lose your future because you watched one movie. You don't lose your discipline because you skipped one workout. You don't lose your purpose because you took one day off. You lose them when these moments stop being exceptions and quietly become your standard. That's when a habit becomes a master. Now, let me give you a simple way to recognize it. If something consistently convinces you to delay the person you know you're supposed to become, it has more authority than it should. If it repeatedly talks you out of discipline, it has more authority than it should. If it keeps negotiating with your standards, it has more authority than it should. So here's the truth. Every yes is also a no. Every time you say yes to temporary relief, you're saying no to something permanent. The question is, what are you actually saying no to? Your health, your marriage, your calling, your integrity, the business you know you're supposed to build, the father, mother, husband, wife, or leader you're capable of becoming. Because your future is not built by one extraordinary decision. It's built by ordinary decisions repeated over time. And whatever consistently overrides your purpose has become your master. So that's the first principle. Stop asking, is this bad? And start asking, is this leading me or am I leading it? Because the thing leading you is shaping you, and the thing shaping you is building your future. So now that you know that what authority looks like, let's expose what it's been hiding. The second principle of reclaiming your authority over addiction is this. The most dangerous addictions are the ones nobody questions. Think about it. The addictions that destroy your future rarely introduce themselves as addictions. They introduce themselves as rewards. You've had a long day, so you deserve this. You can't start tomorrow. Just one more. See, that's how silent addictions speak. They never ask you to abandon your purpose. They simply ask you to postpone it. Comfort never tells you to quit. It simply whispers, stay here. Distractions never say, distraction never says, forget your calling. It simply says, take a break. Average never tells you to stop growing. It simply says you're doing enough. See, that's why they're dangerous. Not because they're loud, but because they're believable. Because your silent addiction is comfort. You become so comfortable that growth feels inconvenient. Maybe it's distraction. You stay so entertained that you've forgotten how to be alone with your own thoughts. Because silence has a way of exposing the conversations you've been avoiding, the discipline you've been delaying, or the calling that you've been ignoring. Maybe it's a relationship. Not because love is wrong, but because you've allowed someone else to become more important than the person you're becoming. A healthy relationship should strengthen your purpose. It should never replace it. Or maybe it's a victimhood. Your pain may be real, but what happened to you may have been very unfair. But don't allow your wound to become your identity, because some people defend their pain more than they pursue their freedom. Or maybe it's average. And it's not because you lack ability, but because average feels safe to you. It asks nothing from you. It never requires courage. It never requires sacrifice. It simply lets you become less than you're capable of becoming. And that happens one comfortable decision at a time. See, every silent addiction wears a different disguise, but they all want and say the same thing. Your attention, your obedience, your authority, your future. Every addiction makes the same promise. I'll make you feel better today if you let me borrow your future. Sounds harmless until you realize the interest is your potential. So now that you've exposed those silent addictions, the next question becomes unavoidable. What have they already cost you? So the third principle of reclaiming your authority over addiction is that every addiction charges interest. Every single one. The problem is it never sends you the bill today. If it did, you'd never say yes. Instead, it lets you believe the decision is free. One more scroll, one more episode, one more game, one more excuse, one more day. See, none of these decisions feel expensive in the moment. And that's exactly why they're dangerous. Because addictions don't steal your future overnight, they just borrow it. One ordinary decision at a time. One day becomes 1 week. 1 week becomes a month, and 1 month becomes a year. Then one day you wake up and wonder, where did the time go? But the better question is, where did my attention go? Because where your attention goes, your life will automatically follow. See, you didn't become undisciplined overnight. You became undisciplined every time you chose what is easy over what was necessary. You don't become average overnight. You become average every time you negotiate with a standard you once refused to compromise. You don't lose your purpose overnight. You slowly replace what matters most with what feels best in the moment. That's how silent addictions work. They don't ask for your future. They ask for today, then tomorrow, then the day after that, until eventually today becomes your future. Now, here's the part most people never realize. The greatest cost of addiction isn't the time you lose, it's the person that you never become. The workout wasn't just building your body, it was building discipline. The difficult conversation wasn't just uncomfortable, it was building character. The hour of focused work wasn't just productive, it was building mastery. Every decision you make is casting a vote, either for the person you were or the person you're becoming. Listen, let me say that again. Every decision is casting a vote either for the person you were or the person you're becoming. So don't ask if today's decision matters. Ask what it's building. Because your future isn't created by what you accomplish once, it's created by what you repeatedly allow to shape you. So listen, the good news is this. If repeated decisions created the problem, then repeated decisions can create the solution as well. And that's exactly where the fourth principle begins. The fourth principle of reclaiming your authority over addiction is purpose must become your highest authority. Purpose must become your highest authority. The opposite of addiction isn't deprivation, it's freedom. Freedom isn't eliminating pleasure. Freedom is putting everything back in its proper place. So rest has a purpose, entertainment has a purpose, comfort has a purpose, relationships have purpose, pleasure has purpose, but none of them were ever meant to become your purpose. That's what addiction does. It takes something that was designed to serve your life and slowly allow it to lead your life. So real freedom is restoring the proper order. The body is the vessel, not the command center. Your body will always crave what feels good. That's not weakness. That's just called being a human. But your body was never meant to decide the decisions of your life. Your mind was designed to lead the body, and your soul was designed to lead the mind. So your soul is where your character lives, your integrity, your purpose, your calling. And when your soul leads, your mind creates clarity and your body follows with discipline. That's the proper order. Soul, mind, body, identity, mindset, behavior. When that order is restored, your decisions begin changing naturally. And it's not because you're forcing yourself, but because you're no longer asking the wrong question. And you stop asking, what do I feel like doing? And you start asking, what does the person I'm becoming choose to do? And that, my friends, is an identity question. And identity always outlasts motivation. You don't become disciplined because you force yourself every day. You become disciplined because discipline becomes part of who you are. You don't become purpose-driven because someone inspired you. You become purpose-driven because you've decided who gets authority over your life. And that is real freedom, not fighting yourself forever, not white-knuckling your way through temptation. Real freedom is becoming someone who no longer needs temporary pleasure to replace lasting purpose. See, you don't defeat silent addictions. You become someone that they can no longer control. So listen, don't leave today asking, what do I need to stop doing? Leave asking a better question. Who do I need to become? Because once you become the right person, your decisions begin reflecting your identity, and that's where lasting transformation begins. So, how do you become that person? How do you stop allowing comfort, distractions, and silent addictions to keep negotiating with your future? I'll tell you this, it's not by trying harder. It's definitely not relying on more motivation, which is temporary, and not by fighting yourself every single day. Because lasting transformation doesn't happen through willpower alone. It happens when your identity, your attention, and your actions begin working together. And listen, this is what we do at Sisu Vita. Sisu Vita is designed to help you create flow on demand, to help you enter the zone, the mental zone, intentionally and stay there longer. Because flow isn't just about productivity. Flow is what happens when your attention is no longer being pulled in 10 different directions. When your mind stops fighting itself, that's when clarity increases. Discipline becomes more natural. Purpose becomes easier to execute, and the silent addictions that once demanded your attention begin losing their authority. And it's not because you forced them out, but it's because you found something greater to say yes to. That is the goal. Not spending your life resisting distractions, but building a life so aligned with your purpose that distractions no longer deserve your attention. So that's what CISA Vita was built to help you do. So look, today you learned that addiction isn't always obvious. Sometimes it looks like comfort, sometimes it looks like distraction. It might even look like average. And sometimes it looks like life everywhere else says, sometimes it looks like what life everywhere else says is good enough. But now you know what to look for. So here's the final question that I want to leave you with. When you look back on your life years from now, what will you be able to say had authority over your decisions? Your purpose or your pleasures? Your calling or your comfort? Because every decision you make today is casting a vote for the person you'll become tomorrow. So protect your attention, guide your purpose, and never allow something that was meant to serve your life to quietly become the thing that leads it. Take your authority back. Work your mind, work your body, feed your mind, build your soul. Wake up the warrior. See you next time.
You've been running on empty, stuck in your mind, fighting shadows of a story you left behind. But there's fire in your heartbeat, ready to